I'm criminal defense attorney Ryan Pacyga, and I'm going to talk about an emerging change in federal criminal prosecution. Just today, the United States Department of Justice, which is our federal criminal investigation and prosecution arm, has unsealed a grand jury indictment out of North Dakota that is a conspiracy case, meaning there are a lot of co-defendants in the case, and they're charged essentially with the following group of crimes. The first one is conspiracy with intent to possess and distribute controlled substances and controlled substance analogues, resulting in serious bodily injury and death. So basically what that count means is that there's a group of people that obtained drugs from inside and outside the United States, including some labs in China allegedly, that were either controlled substances like fentanyl, which is a very addictive and powerful Schedule II controlled substance, as well as analogues. And analogues mean drugs that are synthetically made that are just a hair different chemically, structurally speaking, than the drug that they would mimic. The issue with some of these analogues is that, number one, the government, there's always a cat and mouse game going on with respect to analogues, because the laws in the United States say that if a chemical compound is very close to and almost mimics a controlled substance, then that will count under the analog statute. So there's a lot of litigation about whether, when these labs deviate from the chemical compound structure of a material like fentanyl, whether or not it qualifies as an analog or whether it's different enough that they can't be prosecuted for that. So that's the issue. The labs are always changing the chemical compound a little bit, and the government is always trying to add more substances to the controlled substance list or chemical compound to cover it under this analog statute. The issue with some of these powerful drugs, of course, is that some people overdose and die, and then the question is who's responsible for that. If they don't overdose and die, some of them overdose and have serious bodily injuries. So that's what the government is alleging in this first count of this new indictment that is probably going to start a new trend in federal criminal prosecution in the United States. So that's the controlled substance and analog distribution resulting in serious bodily injury or death, and the government names several people that died around the nation after ingesting these chemicals. Then the other counts have to do with money laundering and a continuing criminal enterprise. So basically what the government here is doing is they're looking across the United States and saying, who has manufactured these drugs in China or somewhere else, who has then facilitated their delivery or the ordering from them. Oftentimes they're done on what's called the dark web, which is sort of an unknown part of the internet, different than your typical internet addresses where you can order these things from. Obviously, to avoid detection is the idea behind those allegations. And then who, after procuring them from the labs in China, who's brought them over to the United States and then distributed them and made money off of that. And they'll go up the chain from the least responsible, sort of the money laundering counts in this one perhaps, or the continuing criminal enterprise, up to the people that they think are the most responsible for this, which are obviously the people making the most amount of money in this conspiracy or pyramid operation. Those are the allegations. So I predict we're going to see more of this coming forward, and it's important obviously to find a lawyer who understands the nature of analog prosecutions. I've handled those before, as well as just what is somebody's role in a conspiracy. What did they know? What didn't the defendant know? Because sometimes in a conspiracy the government will try to hold someone responsible in a conspiracy for something that has a lot more to do than what they really did. In other words, maybe someone wasn't using good judgment and gave drugs to a friend once or twice, or was selling it for a little while, but all of a sudden the government wants to hold them responsible for everything that all of the co-conspirators were doing for a length of time, for a year or two or three, and that would really increase the prison time that someone's facing. So a good defense lawyer will take a look at what you or your loved one are actually responsible for, if indeed you did commit a crime, and make sure that you're treated fairly in that conspiracy, because you shouldn't be going to prison for decades if your conduct is really less serious than that. But it takes an advocate that's willing to look through all of the discovery, which is the evidence in the case, understands how to deal with the experts to determine what is or is not an analog, and who is or isn't responsible for a crime committed, or what would be reasonably foreseeable, as sometimes it's alleged. So those are some of the issues to look at in these controlled substances and analogues cases, as well as some of the money laundering allegations. If you have more questions about serious felony cases or controlled substances or analogues, I'm federal criminal defense attorney Ryan Pacyga. You can find me at arrestedmn.com or at 612-339-5844. I do defend these cases across the nation.